I found my sister's secret diary. What I read, inside, still haunts me. I never thought anything could be hidden from me and my sister. We've always been close, more like best friends than siblings. We shared everything from clothes to secrets, and nothing was ever off limits. So when I found her secret diary hidden deep in her drawer, I was sure it was just a collection of random thoughts. Nothing serious. But what I read inside shattered everything I thought I knew about her, and now I can't stop thinking about it. Let me take you back to the moment when I made the mistake of opening that diary. You see, everything in my life was fine until that day. Everything was normal. I had no reason to doubt my sister, but after reading what was in that diary, I now wonder how well I ever really knew her. It was a rainy Sunday afternoon when I stumbled upon it. My sister, Emily, had gone out with some friends, and the house was quiet. I was bored, scrolling through my phone, when I decided to organize her room a little, something I'd never do unless I was really desperate for something to do. That's when I saw it, a small leather-bound book peeking out from the back of her drawer. Now I know what you're probably thinking. Why would I go snooping through her things? But let's be real, I'd known this girl my whole life. We shared everything. And I figured, hey, she'd never mind if I took a quick peek at whatever was in there. I told myself I'd be just looking for some harmless notes or funny things she wrote. You know, the kind of stuff people keep in diaries. But as soon as I opened it, I realized this wasn't just some random notebook. The first page hit me like a punch to the stomach. The first entry was dated from a few weeks ago, not long after our parents had gone away for the weekend. Emily had always been a bit secretive, but I never thought much of it. I mean, she's an introvert like me, so it's not like she shared everything with me. But as I read through the words on that page, my heart started to race. It wasn't some innocent ramblings about school or boys like I had expected. No, this was something darker. Emily had written about feeling trapped, about how she didn't belong in this family. She talked about feeling like she was being controlled, but not in the way you'd think. She wasn't talking about our parents. She was talking about me. She wrote that I was suffocating her, that I'd been too overbearing with our relationship, that I had no idea how much she resented the way I hovered around her, trying to be her protector, even when she didn't need it. And the worst part, she said that every time I did, it pushed her further away. I felt my stomach twist. How could I have been so blind to this? All these years, I thought I was doing the right thing, looking out for her. But what if I was just smothering her instead? As I turned the page, the entries became even more unsettling. Emily started to write about her relationships, friends, boys, and the one person I never thought she'd mention, our mom. She described how, in her eyes, Mom always favored me. She felt like I was the one who got all the attention, and she was just there. It was a strange feeling to read those words, because I never saw it that way. We'd always been a family of four, together, close-knit. But now, reading her thoughts, it was clear that I had been blind to something much deeper. The diary continued, detailing her feelings of abandonment, of never feeling good enough. And then, it hit me hard. She was secretly seeing someone who made her feel like she mattered, someone who made her feel seen. She'd been lying about where she was going, who she was with. She had kept this relationship hidden from everyone. But the worst part? She wrote that she was planning to leave. She wanted to leave everything behind, our family, her life here. She even wrote about how she wanted to start over, somewhere far away, with this person. My heart dropped. Was I really so oblivious to everything she'd been going through? How could I not have seen the signs? By now, I was feeling completely overwhelmed. I had to stop reading for a moment to process everything. My sister, the one person I thought I knew better than anyone else, had been living this secret life right under my nose. I felt a mix of betrayal and guilt. How could I have missed it? How did I never notice she was struggling so much? I thought we were close, but she had kept all of this from me. It made me question everything, our relationship, the way I had treated her, and the way I thought we communicated. The worst part came next, though. I read a new entry, dated just a few days ago. She had written about the person she was seeing. The thing is, it wasn't just some random guy she met at school or work. The person she had been sneaking around with was my best friend, Max. My stomach churned. Max? The guy I had known for years, the guy who was like a brother to me? I couldn't even fathom how this could be happening. My own sister was having an affair with him, and I hadn't even noticed. The realization hit me like a freight train. Make sure to like the video and subscribe so you never miss more shocking and real stories like this one. I couldn't sit still anymore. My hands were shaking as I closed the diary. My mind was racing, but I couldn't bring myself to look at the pages again. I had to process this. I couldn't believe it. How could Emily do this to me? And how could Max, my best friend, the guy I trusted more than anyone, betray me like this? I needed answers, and I needed them now. I stormed out of her room, determined to find Emily. She was in the kitchen, making coffee, as if nothing was wrong. My heart was pounding, but I didn't hesitate. I marched straight up to her and asked the one question that had been eating away at me. Why, Emily? Why didn't you tell me? Why did you keep this secret? She froze, her eyes widening in shock. She didn't even try to deny it. I didn't know how to tell you, she stammered, looking down at the floor. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did, I shot back, my voice trembling with anger. You hurt me by lying to me, by keeping this from me. And Max, of all people, was the one you chose? How could you do this? Tears welled up in her eyes as she spoke. I never meant for it to happen this way. I never thought it would get out of hand, but I just felt so lonely. I didn't feel like I mattered, and Max made me feel special. I took a step back, the weight of her words crashing down on me. She wasn't just looking for attention, she was looking for validation, for something I hadn't been able to give her. I felt so many emotions in that moment, hurt, anger, confusion, but deep down, I knew this wasn't just her fault. It was mine too. I should have seen the signs. I should have been more aware. I was still reeling from what Emily had just confessed when I heard a voice from behind me. I turned, and there he was. Max, my best friend, the guy I had known for years, the guy I trusted with everything. His face was pale, his eyes wide with guilt. Man, I didn't think it would come to this, Max said, his voice low. I didn't want to hurt you. I stared at him, trying to process what was happening. You didn't want to hurt me? Are you serious, Max? You've been lying to me this whole time. You were with my sister and I didn't even know about it. How long has this been going on? He glanced at Emily, his face twisted with guilt, but then he looked back at me. A few months. I'm sorry. I never meant for it to get this far. I never wanted to hurt you, but it just happened. It hit me like a ton of bricks. A few months? That's how long they had been sneaking around behind my back. I had no idea. And worse, they had both known about the lies, and no one had said a word to me. The silence in the room was deafening. My mind was spinning, trying to process the betrayal from both of them. My best friend and my sister. The two people I trusted most had been lying to me, and all I could do was stand there in disbelief. Why didn't you just tell me the truth? I finally asked, my voice shaky. Why keep it a secret? Max's eyes shifted uncomfortably. I didn't know how to tell you, man. I didn't want to lose our friendship, and I didn't think you'd ever understand. Emily stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry. I never meant for this to hurt you. I was lost. I didn't know what I was doing. I looked at them both, the anger rising again. You didn't know what you were doing? This is a mess. You think I'm just supposed to forgive you and move on? How am I supposed to trust either of you again? Max looked like he was about to say something, but before he could, I cut him off. I can't believe you both. I don't even know what to say. My voice cracked, the betrayal too raw for words. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of hurt, confusion, and anger. How was I supposed to move forward when the two people I cared about most had just torn my world apart? Max opened his mouth, then closed it again. He looked like he wanted to apologize, but no words came out. Emily, on the other hand, was crying now, her face streaked with tears. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I never wanted this. I didn't know what I was doing, but it just happened. I shook my head, unable to process what I was hearing. This wasn't just a mistake, this was a choice, a series of choices that they both made without considering how it would affect me. And it was clear to me now, my friendship with Max, my relationship with Emily, all of it had been built on lies. You never meant for this? I echoed, trying to keep my voice steady. How could you not? You both knew. You both knew what you were doing, and yet you kept it from me. You kept lying to my face. There was a long, heavy pause. It felt like hours, but it was probably only minutes. I couldn't bear the silence. I turned away from them both, pacing the room as I tried to figure out what I should do next. The pain in my chest was suffocating. I wanted to scream, to punch something, but I couldn't. Finally, I stopped and turned back to face them. "I need some space," I said, the words coming out colder than I intended. "I can't deal with this right now. Just leave." Max looked like he was about to protest, but I didn't give him the chance. I walked out of the room and slammed the door behind me. I could hear them both calling after me, but I couldn't bring myself to turn around. I had to get away from them, away from the people who had shattered my trust in the worst possible way. The next few days were a blur. I didn't want to see Max or Emily, but I couldn't exactly avoid them. They were in the same house. Still, every time I passed them in the hallway or sat at the kitchen table with them, it felt like I was suffocating. The weight of the betrayal hung in the air like a storm cloud, and no matter how hard we tried to act normal, it was impossible to ignore. Max tried texting me, but I ignored every message. I couldn't bring myself to respond. What could I say to him? Thanks for betraying me with my sister? No. I didn't want to hear his excuses anymore. And Emily, despite her tears and apologies, couldn't undo the damage she had done. I spent most of my time in my room, trying to focus on anything else. Work, hobbies, anything that didn't remind me of the mess my life had become, but nothing helped. The pain of being deceived by the people I trusted most kept creeping back into my mind. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see were their faces, Max, my best friend, and Emily, my sister, together behind my back. It was impossible to escape the betrayal, no matter how hard I tried. One night, after a particularly strained dinner, I decided to go for a walk. I needed to clear my head. The cool night air helped calm my racing thoughts. I found myself wandering to the park down the street, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. As I sat on the park bench, I couldn't stop thinking about how everything had fallen apart. I'd trusted them. I had always believed they would have my back. And now, I was left wondering if I would ever trust anyone again. The anger was still there, but so was the hurt. I wasn't sure which one hurt more, but as I sat there in the silence of the night, I realized something. I couldn't keep letting this control me. I couldn't let the actions of others define my future. I had to find a way to heal, and that's when I made a decision. I needed to confront them both, once and for all. I couldn't move on without getting everything off my chest. But this time, I wouldn't be the person to hide. I would stand my ground and make them understand what they had done to me. I wouldn't let this be my burden anymore. A few days later, I finally gathered enough courage to face them. It had been a week since I'd told them to leave me alone, and I had spent that time stewing in my anger, my disappointment, and my pain. But I realized that avoiding the issue wasn't helping. It was just allowing the hurt to grow. I decided to confront them at the dinner table. I couldn't escape them forever, and I wasn't going to keep running. As I sat across from Max and Emily, I felt the tension build in my chest. It was like every breath I took was heavy with everything left unsaid. I had to do this. I had to make them understand what they had done to me. I started by looking straight at Max. "We need to talk. All of us." Emily shifted uncomfortably in her seat, but I could see that she was bracing herself for whatever was coming next. Max, on the other hand, looked like he had been expecting this. He didn't meet my eyes, instead staring at his plate, clearly avoiding the confrontation. "Look at me, Max," I said, my voice sharp. "I need you to hear me out, because I can't keep going like this." Max finally looked up, and for the first time, I saw the shame in his eyes. "I know I messed up, man," he said quietly. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." I shook my head, the anger welling up again. "Sorry? You think sorry is enough? You and my sister, my own sister, behind my back, and all you can say is sorry?" Emily looked like she was about to speak, but I raised my hand, silencing her. "You're not innocent in this either, Emily. Don't act like you didn't know what was going on. You both knew, and you kept it from me. For how long? How many more times were you going to lie to my face?" She bit her lip, her eyes welling up with tears. "I never meant to hurt you. I was confused. I didn't know what I was doing." "Confused?" I repeated, incredulous. "You were sleeping with my best friend, and you were confused? This wasn't a mistake, Emily. This was a choice, over and over again." Max finally spoke up again. "We didn't want to hurt you, but we didn't know how to tell you. We never meant for it to get this far." "Well, it did," I snapped, "and now we're here, and I'm done. The silence that followed was suffocating. They both sat there, their faces a mix of regret and guilt. But I didn't care about their regret anymore. I had to take control of the situation. I had to take control of my life again. "I'm not doing this," I said, my voice calm but firm. "You two have crossed a line that I can't come back from. I'm done with both of you." The words I had just spoken echoed in my mind. I wasn't sure I was ready for the aftermath, but at that moment, it felt like the only thing I could do. I had to let go. Letting go of them, of the people I thought I could trust most, was the hardest thing I'd ever done. But I knew it was the right decision. Max sat there, his face pale, while Emily looked like she might crumble. I had never seen her like this. The girl who used to be so confident, so sure of herself, was now sitting there, a broken mess. And for some reason, that made everything worse. "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered, her voice shaky. "You're my brother, Alec. I thought we'd get past this. I thought we could be a family again." But those words didn't matter anymore. Nothing she said would change what had happened. The betrayal ran so deep, I could feel it in every part of me. The love I had for her, my sister, was fading away, replaced with a bitter sense of loss. And Max, the best friend I had trusted for so long, was no different. I stood up from the table, my hands trembling, but my resolve stronger than ever. "I don't know what else to say. I can't go back to what we were. I don't even want to try." I walked away from the table, my steps heavy as I headed toward my room. I didn't look back, and I didn't want to. I needed to be alone. I needed to process everything and figure out how to move forward, away from the wreckage they had caused in my life. The next few days felt like a blur. I stayed in my room as much as possible, trying to avoid seeing either of them. The guilt they both seemed to carry didn't change what had happened. They could feel bad all they wanted, but it didn't erase the betrayal. I couldn't help but reflect on all the times I had trusted them, all the moments I had shared with both of them, thinking everything was fine. But now, it felt like all of it was a lie. It wasn't just about the affair. It wasn't even just about the lies. It was about the realization that the people I had considered my closest companions had turned out to be strangers. The people I loved the most had taken advantage of that love, and I didn't know how to forgive them. The truth was, I wasn't sure I ever could. But I also realized something. I couldn't let this define me, this pain, this heartbreak. It wasn't the end of my story. It was just a chapter, and it was up to me to decide what came next. A few days had passed since the confrontation, and I was still reeling from the emotional fallout. I'd cut off all communication with Max and Emily, but I could feel the weight of their absence pressing in on me. It was as if everything had shifted, and the space I had once shared with them felt hollow. I couldn't shake the image of their faces, the guilt and confusion that had clouded their expressions when I told them I was done. But as much as I wanted to stay in that state of anger and sadness, I knew I couldn't. I had to start moving forward. I needed to find a way to heal, even if that meant letting go of everything I had known. I started spending more time with my friends, real friends, the ones who didn't know Max and Emily. It was awkward at first. I had to answer questions about what had happened, but I was grateful for their support. They listened without judgment, offering me a space to vent and process. They understood that I wasn't just losing a friendship, I was losing a piece of myself that I had invested in for so long. One evening, I found myself at a bar with a couple of friends, having a drink and talking about anything but the mess I had left behind. It felt good to be able to laugh again, to step outside the bubble of hurt that had consumed me for days. I realized that, despite everything, I still had the ability to enjoy life. But then, my phone buzzed. I glanced at it, not expecting much. But when I saw it was a message from Emily, I froze. I hadn't blocked her yet, mostly because I didn't know how to end things completely. She hadn't tried to reach out since our confrontation, and I had been avoiding her messages, but this one was different. She wanted to meet up. I stared at the message for a while, unsure what to do. Part of me wanted to just ignore it, keep moving on with my life. But there was another part of me that felt like I needed closure. I wasn't sure what that closure would look like, but I knew I had to face it, face her, one last time. I replied, agreeing to meet up. It wasn't for forgiveness or reconciliation, I didn't expect that, but for my own peace of mind. I wanted to know why. What was going through her head when she did it? Why would she throw away everything we had? Was it just a momentary lapse, or was I always just a backup plan? We met at a small cafe a few blocks from my place. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the street, but it didn't matter. I didn't feel the warmth of the light or the usual comfort of the place. I felt numb, like I was going through the motions but wasn't really there. When I saw Emily walk in, I couldn't help but notice how much she looked the same, yet so different. It was like she wasn't the person I had known. The woman who had once been my sister, my confidant, now seemed like a stranger. She sat down across from me, her eyes red, like she had been crying. But I didn't feel bad for her anymore, not after everything. "You look good," she said softly, almost like she was trying to break the silence with some semblance of normalcy. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I studied her face, looking for any sign of remorse, any indication that she realized the weight of what she had done. But there was nothing. Just empty apologies that wouldn't change anything. Finally, I spoke. "What the hell was that, Emily? What were you thinking?" Her face crumpled slightly and she looked down at the table. "Alec, I don't know what to say. I messed up. I've been so messed up. I didn't mean for it to go this far." "Didn't mean for it to go this far?" I echoed, the bitterness rising in my throat. "You slept with my best friend behind my back for months, and that's your excuse?" She winced as if the words stung, but I couldn't bring myself to care. "I don't know why it happened," she continued, her voice shaking. "I didn't want to hurt you. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. Max and I, we were just friends, and then I don't know, it just happened. And then Ethan, I don't even know why it started, but it did, and I didn't stop it." I leaned forward, trying to hold back the anger boiling inside me. "You didn't stop it because you were okay with it, Emily. You were okay with betraying me, with betraying the one person who trusted you. Why? Why, Emily?" "I was scared," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I was scared that I wasn't good enough for you, that I'd never measure up, that you'd eventually leave me, so I tried to sabotage it first." Her words hit harder than I expected. I had no idea that was what was going on inside her head. It didn't make it okay, but it explained a lot. She had been so afraid of losing me that she ruined everything. But what bothered me most was that she never came to me with these fears. Instead, she took the coward's way out and hurt me, all to protect her own ego. "Emily, I loved you. I really did," I said, my voice cracking slightly. "But you broke me. You broke everything we had." There was a long pause before she spoke again. "I'm sorry. I really am, Alec. I didn't think I'd lose you over it. I thought we could keep going, like nothing happened. But I see now how wrong I was. I don't want to lose you forever." But it was too late. The damage was done. And even if I wanted to forgive her, I knew I couldn't. Not now. I stood up abruptly, needing space to breathe. "I can't do this anymore, Emily. I can't pretend that this didn't happen. You've hurt me in ways I can't explain. I don't know how to fix this, and I don't want to." I walked out of the cafe without another word. I could hear her calling after me, but I didn't turn back. There was no point. I had to leave that chapter behind, even though it hurt more than anything I'd ever experienced. The days that followed were a blur. I spent most of my time in a haze, avoiding social media, cutting off people who had been involved, and just trying to numb the pain. I hadn't realized how much Emily and Ethan's betrayal had shaken me until I found myself constantly replaying those moments, the look on their faces when they realized I knew, the things Emily had said to justify her actions. It felt like a knot in my chest that wouldn't go away. But slowly I started piecing myself back together. I threw myself into work, surrounded myself with people who genuinely cared about me, and focused on rediscovering what made me happy before all of this happened. It wasn't easy. Some days were better than others, and the weight of the betrayal still lingered, but I knew I had to move forward. I realized that I had to rebuild not just my relationship with others, but also my relationship with myself. Trusting people again would take time. Trusting myself, even more so. A few weeks later, I found myself out for drinks with some old friends. I hadn't been social for a while, but I knew I couldn't isolate myself forever. The conversation was light, the atmosphere easygoing. No one brought up Emily or Ethan, and for the first time in a long while, I was able to laugh without that nagging feeling in the back of my mind. It was during that night that I met her, Grace. She wasn't what I expected, but there was something about her that made me feel at ease. We talked for hours, and for the first time since the betrayal, I felt like I could actually connect with someone again. It wasn't about replacing Emily or forgetting what had happened, but it was about finding a way to move forward. I wasn't ready to dive into another relationship, but I wasn't closing myself off either. Grace understood. She didn't pressure me to open up, but she listened when I needed to. We spent a few more weeks getting to know each other, and I slowly realized that maybe, just maybe, I could trust someone again. So, guys, I know this has been a tough journey for me, and I still have a long way to go, but I've learned that sometimes the worst betrayals can lead to the best lessons. If you've ever been in a situation like this, or have your own stories to share, please drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. And if you want to keep following my story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more updates. Thanks for reading, and remember, healing takes time, but it's possible.